Every World of Warcraft expansion brings millions of players back to Azeroth. Some are longtime veterans returning after years away. Others are completely new to the game, excited to experience everything WoW Midnight has to offer. In every single expansion, something interesting happens. No matter how experienced someone thinks they are, almost everyone makes the same beginner mistakes. Some mistakes only waste a few minutes. Others can cost you thousands of gold, slow down your progression, or make the expansion far more frustrating than it needs to be. The good news? Almost all of these mistakes are completely avoidable if you know about them beforehand. In this video, we're covering 20 beginner mistakes everyone makes in WoW Midnight, and more importantly, how you can avoid them from day one. Some of these lessons come from years of World of Warcraft expansions, while others are especially relevant to the direction Blizzard has shared for Midnight. As the game evolves, specific systems may change, but these habits will always help you become a better player. Let's jump into the first mistake. Mistake number 1, trying to rush everything. One of the biggest traps in every new expansion is believing that everything needs to happen immediately. You see players racing to max level, content creators posting in-game guides within hours, guilds preparing for raids almost instantly. Suddenly, it feels like you're behind before you've even finished the opening quests. The reality is very different. Most players aren't competing for world-first achievements. They're playing because they enjoy World of Warcraft. If you spend your entire journey worrying about keeping up with everyone else, you'll miss one of the best parts of a new expansion, discovering it for yourself. Take time to learn your class. Explore the new zones. Pay attention to the story if you're interested in Warcraft lore. The endgame isn't going anywhere. Rushing through everything often leads to burnout long before you've experienced what makes the expansion special. Now here's a mistake that almost every returning player makes. Mistake number 2, picking a class only because it's meta. Before every expansion launches, tier lists begin appearing everywhere. This is the strongest DPS. This tank is overpowered. This healer is mandatory. It's easy to believe you have to pick whatever class is currently at the top. But here's something every experienced WoW player eventually learns. The meta changes constantly. Balance patches arrive. Abilities get adjusted. Talents get reworked. The class that's dominating today may be average a few weeks later. Instead of chasing temporary rankings, choose a class that you genuinely enjoy. If you like how your character plays, you'll naturally spend more time mastering it. A player who understands their favorite class will almost always outperform someone who picked a stronger class they don't actually enjoy. Let's move on to a mistake that quietly slows down thousands of players. Mistake number 3, ignoring your talents. It's surprisingly common for beginners to unlock talent points without really reading what they do. Some players simply click whatever looks interesting. Others copy an online build without understanding why it works. Neither approach helps you learn your class. Talents aren't just extra bonuses. They shape how your character plays. A single talent can completely change your combat rotation, resource management, or survivability. Spend a few minutes reading each new choice. Even if you eventually use a recommended build, understanding your talents will make you a much better player in the long run. Knowledge always beats blind copying. Here's another mistake that catches players every expansion. Mistake number 4, spending gold too quickly. The launch of a new expansion creates one of the busiest economies in World of Warcraft. Crafting materials become expensive. Gear prices fluctuate wildly. Consumables can cost far more than they're worth. Many beginners see an item upgrade on the auction house and buy it immediately. A few days later, that same item might cost a fraction of the price. Early in an expansion, patience is often more valuable than gold itself. Ask yourself before every purchase, do I actually need this right now? If the answer is no, waiting could save you a significant amount of gold. Now let's talk about something players often underestimate. Mistake number 5, skipping the story completely. Everyone enjoys World of Warcraft differently. Some players care only about raiding. Others focus on PvP. Some spend hours collecting mounts and transmogs. But even if story isn't your main reason for playing, completely skipping every quest dialogue and cinematic can leave you disconnected from the world. Weeks later, many players find themselves asking questions like, who is this character? Why are we fighting this enemy? What actually happened? The opening weeks of an expansion are one of the best opportunities to experience Warcraft's storytelling. You don't have to read every line of dialogue, but slowing down during important story moments can make the entire expansion feel much more meaningful. Now here's a mistake that's easy to make without even realizing it. Mistake number 6, playing without a plan. It's tempting to log in and simply do whatever catches your attention. A world quest here, a dungeon there, some gathering, a little crafting. Before you know it, several hours have passed. You were busy the entire time, but you're not sure what you actually accomplished. Instead, start each session with 1 or 2 clear goals. Maybe today is for finishing the campaign. Maybe it's leveling professions. Maybe you're focusing on reputation or gearing up. Having a simple plan makes your time feel much more rewarding and helps you avoid wandering aimlessly between activities. And finally, let's finish this section with one of the biggest mistakes new players make. Mistake number 7, comparing yourself to everyone else. This is probably the fastest way to ruin your own enjoyment. Someone will always have more gold. Someone will always reach max level sooner. Someone will always have better gear. Someone will always clear harder content. That's been true in every World of Warcraft expansion. The players who enjoy the game the most aren't constantly measuring themselves against others. They're focused on their own progress. Did you improve your rotation? Did you complete a difficult dungeon? Did you finally understand your class? Did you accomplish your goals for the day? Those are the comparisons that actually matter. World of Warcraft is a journey, not a race against every other player. Those were the first 7 beginner mistakes that almost everyone makes in WoW. Midnight. But we're just getting started. In the next part, we'll cover even more common mistakes, including errors that can slow your leveling, hurt your long-term progression, waste valuable resources, and make the expansion much harder than it needs to be. Welcome back. If you've avoided the first 7 mistakes, you're already setting yourself up for a much smoother experience than most players have during the launch of a new expansion. But now we're getting into the mistakes that don't always feel like mistakes at first. In fact, some of them seem like the right thing to do, until you realize weeks later that they've been quietly slowing your progress the entire time. Let's continue. Mistake number 8, trying to do everything at once. One of the biggest advantages of a new WoW expansion is that there's always something to do. Campaign quests, world content, professions, dungeons, PvP, achievements, exploration, collectibles. The problem is that many new players look at all of that content and think, I need to keep up with all of it. That's almost impossible. Instead of trying to complete every activity every day, decide what's most important to you. Maybe your goal is gearing up for Mythic Plus. Maybe you love collecting mounts. Maybe you're mostly interested in the story. There's nothing wrong with focusing on one part of the game before moving on to another. Trying to do everything usually means you never feel finished with anything. Now here's a mistake that affects nearly every returning player. Mistake number 9, assuming everything works like the last expansion. World of Warcraft evolves with every expansion. Abilities change. Talent trees are updated. Professions receive adjustments. New systems are introduced. Old systems disappear. Returning players often rely on muscle memory instead of learning what's changed. They use outdated rotations, ignore new mechanics, or spend time looking for systems that no longer exist. Even if you've played WoW for years, approach Midnight with fresh eyes. Spend a little time exploring your class again. Read your abilities. Understand the updated systems. A few minutes of learning now can prevent hours of confusion later. Now let's talk about something that many players underestimate. Mistake number 10, ignoring your interface. Your user interface is more important than most people realize. If your action bars are cluttered, if your important abilities are hard to see, if your minimap is covered by unnecessary windows, you're making the game harder than it needs to be. A clean interface helps you notice cooldowns, enemy mechanics, and important information much faster. Take some time to organize your UI early. Move important abilities somewhere comfortable. Remove things you don't use. The goal isn't to copy someone else's setup. It's to create an interface that works for you. Here's another mistake that's surprisingly common. Mistake number 11, holding cooldowns forever. Many beginners save their strongest abilities for the perfect moment. The problem is, that perfect moment often never comes. They finish quests without using major cooldowns. Complete dungeons while powerful abilities sit unused. Fight difficult enemies without taking advantage of the tools their class already has. Most cooldowns are designed to be used regularly. If you're constantly saving everything for later, you're making every fight longer than it needs to be. Learning when to use your cooldowns confidently is one of the fastest ways to improve your gameplay. Now here's a mistake that can quietly waste hours. Mistake number 12, constantly switching goals. Imagine spending an hour leveling your professions, then suddenly deciding to farm reputation. Halfway through, you switch to running dungeons. Then you start farming gold. At the end of the night, you've touched 4 different activities but haven't made much progress in any of them. It's much more efficient to stay focused. Choose one priority, complete it, then move on to the next. Small, consistent progress almost always beats constant distraction. Now let's discuss something many players don't think about until it's too late. Mistake number 13, ignoring the community. World of Warcraft has always been more enjoyable with other people. Many beginners try to figure out every mechanic entirely on their own. There's nothing wrong with learning independently, but don't forget that thousands of other players are exploring the same expansion. Guilds, communities, friends, forums, class discussions. These can all help you learn faster and enjoy the game more. Sometimes the answer to your question is only one conversation away. A good community can save you hours of frustration and make the game far more memorable. And finally, let's finish this section with a mistake that affects almost everyone eventually. Mistake number 14, forgetting to enjoy the journey. When players become too focused on efficiency, everything starts feeling like work. Every quest becomes another task. Every dungeon becomes another checklist. Every login becomes another obligation. But World of Warcraft has survived for decades because it's more than just progression. It's exploration, adventure, discovery, meeting new players, finding unexpected secrets, experiencing memorable stories. Don't become so obsessed with reaching the destination that you forget to enjoy getting there. Years from now, you probably won't remember the exact item level you had during the first month of Midnight. But you'll remember your first adventure through its new zones, the friends you made, and the moments that surprised you. Those experiences are what make a World of Warcraft expansion memorable. We've now covered 14 beginner mistakes that almost every player makes in WoW, Midnight. But the final 6 are some of the biggest mistakes of all. They're the habits that often determine whether a player sticks with the expansion for months or burns out after just a few weeks. And the final mistake might be the most important lesson in this entire video. Welcome to the final part of the video. If you've made it this far, you've already learned about 14 mistakes that catch almost every player at the start of a new World of Warcraft expansion. The last 6 mistakes are arguably the most important because they don't just affect your first few days. They can shape your entire experience throughout WoW, Midnight. Let's finish the list. Mistake number 15. Changing your main character too often. One of the most common things that happens during every expansion launch is what players call alt fever. You start as one class. Then you watch a streamer playing another class that looks more fun. A friend tells you their class is amazing. A new tier list appears online. Suddenly, you're creating another character. Then another. Then another. Before long, you've invested dozens of hours across multiple characters without making meaningful progress on any of them. There's nothing wrong with having alts. In fact, many players love playing multiple classes. The mistake is abandoning your main every time something new catches your attention. Stick with one character long enough to experience the expansion properly. You'll always have time to level alts later. Now here's a mistake that's surprisingly easy to make. Mistake number 16. Ignoring professions until it's too late. A lot of players tell themselves, "I'll worry about professions later." Then later arrives. Everyone else has already leveled their professions. The market has changed. Crafting opportunities have disappeared. And now catching up feels much more difficult. You don't need to become a profession expert on day one. But choosing your professions early and gradually working on them alongside your normal gameplay often feels much better than trying to level everything at once weeks later. Professions aren't just about making items. They can also become one of your best long-term sources of gold and self-sufficiency. Now let's talk about something that affects almost everyone. Mistake number 17. Believing every tier list. Tier lists are everywhere before a new expansion. Best DPS, Worst healer. Strongest tank. Best solo class. While they can be useful as a starting point, many players make the mistake of treating them like absolute truth. The reality is much more complicated. Most players aren't competing in world-first races. Skill, knowledge, and experience usually matter far more than a small difference in class rankings. A player who understands their class inside and out will almost always perform better than someone who picked a top-tier class but never learned how to play it effectively. Use tier lists as information, not as rules. Here's another mistake that quietly hurts a lot of players. Mistake number 18, playing without taking breaks. When a new expansion launches, it's incredibly easy to lose track of time. One more quest, one more dungeon, one more level. Before you know it, you've been playing for 8 or 10 hours. At first, it feels exciting, but eventually, your focus starts slipping. You make mistakes. You stop enjoying the story. Simple tasks begin feeling repetitive. This is how burnout starts. Taking short breaks doesn't slow your progress. In many cases, it actually improves it. Coming back refreshed often makes you play better, think more clearly, and enjoy the game much more. Remember, Midnight is designed to last for months, not just launch weekend. We're almost at the end. And this next mistake is one I see every expansion. Mistake number 19, thinking you're behind. This might be the biggest illusion in any MMORPG. You log in and see someone with incredible gear. Another player has already cleared difficult content. Someone else has earned a rare mount. Social media is full of screenshots showing amazing achievements. Suddenly, it feels like everyone is ahead of you. But here's what those screenshots don't show. They don't show how many hours those players invested. They don't show the mistakes they made. They don't show that thousands of other players are progressing at exactly the same pace as you. World of Warcraft isn't a race with one finish line. It's a world where everyone moves at their own speed. The moment you stop worrying about keeping up, the game becomes much more enjoyable. And finally, the last beginner mistake everyone makes in WoW, Midnight. Mistake number 20, forgetting why you started playing. When a new expansion launches, it's easy to become obsessed with optimization. Better gear, more gold, higher damage, faster leveling, better rankings. Those goals are perfectly fine, but don't forget why you were excited about Midnight in the first place. Maybe it was the new story, the new zones, exploring Azeroth again, playing with friends, trying a new class, experiencing a brand new chapter in the Warcraft universe. Those are the moments you'll remember years from now, not the exact item level you had during the first month. The players who enjoy every expansion the most aren't always the fastest. They're the ones who never lose sight of why they started playing. Because at the end of the day, World of Warcraft is about adventure. And adventures are meant to be enjoyed, not rushed. And those were 20 beginner mistakes everyone makes in WoW, Midnight. The good news is that every single one of these mistakes can be avoided once you recognize them. You don't need to be the fastest player. You don't need perfect gear on day one. And you definitely don't need to know every system immediately. Take your time. Learn your class. Explore the new world. Find a good guild. Experiment with different activities. Most importantly, remember that every experienced World of Warcraft player was once a beginner too. The players you admire today made many of these same mistakes. They simply learned from them. Now I'd love to hear from you. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made at the start of a World of Warcraft expansion? Leave your answer in the comments. Your experience might help another player avoid making the same mistake. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more WoW, Midnight guides, beginner tips, class breakdowns, lore videos, and expansion updates. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck in WoW Midnight, and I'll see you in the next video.